afternoon and welcome back to Girded with Truth. Yesterday we would have spoken about praying over our promises, and today we're getting into expecting our promises. So 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 1 says, "And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons." So Saul was anointed king, and the Lord told him to wait. Samuel told him to wait on instructions from the Lord, and he did not do that. Instead, he chose to be disobedient to God. So God considered that a sin, and it was a sin. So the Lord rejected Saul as king over Israel. And now the Lord told Samuel to stop crying over Saul, because he is ready to anoint the person he has chosen to be king over Israel. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 13 says, "Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah." So here is Samuel again. He went to the house of Jesse. He brought out all his sons, and the Lord said none of them would be king. And then he decided to bring the last one who was taking care of the sheep, who was David. And the Lord anointed David as king over Israel. And the promise to David was that he would be king, but he was not immediately made king. Instead, he went back to tend for his sheep until his appointed time. So let us read about his appointed time for the promise that God had given to him. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 32 to 37 says, "And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth." And David said unto Saul, "Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God." David said, "Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said unto David, "Go, and the Lord be with thee." So here is David. He is rising up. He is a little boy, but he knows who God is. He knows what God can do. So he is saying, this uncircumcised Philistine is no match for my God, and I will fight for my God. I will in fact fight for my promise. And we know that this is the account that led David to be named as a person who slays his tens of thousands. This is the account that really started David as the man of war he was called to be in the kingdom of Israel and in the kingdom of God. So David wasn't just praying over his promise. He was no longer just persevering and preparing for his promise, but he was in fact expecting his promise. He put himself in position in expectation, because he said, "You cannot stand against my God, and I will fight for this promise." So David wasn't in fear. He did not cower. He did not think he could not have done it. Instead, he said he will go, and he stood in expectation of his promise. He stood waiting for the deliverance. He said, the same God that delivered me then is going to deliver me now. So he stood in expectation and anticipation of what God was going to do in his life. So today, I'm encouraging you, do not live in fear and do not cower when the enemy comes, when the battle becomes hot, when the enemy is hot on your tail. Instead, stand like David and say, how dare this enemy defy the true and living God. Nothing can stand against our God, so nothing can stand against what God has promised us. So let us not just fight, not just pray, not just prepare, but let us expect that God is going to come through. He is going to deliver us, and this promise is about to come to pass. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.